He had the smallest crowd of anyone at the soapbox.
Yeah.
But then when we heard him talk, he was the only one who sounded like, I don't know, a human being.
Yeah.
Up to
he
that
was up
point.
there talking to nobody. We were making fun in the back, and I just kept looking at him like, what the fuck? Because he's got a full emotional control of his voice. He's very lithe. He's like a dancer. He's moving back and forth on the stage with just this incredible
Very strong
grace.
serial Pharrell energy.
He's got grace. He's got arm movements. He's got very dramatic vocal tones. He knows how to pause. He knows how to go quiet. He knows how to go big. And I'm just like, I would follow this man into oblivion. And I realized I don't see him as the president, but if he came on TV and as Admiral Whites and said, yeah, we're overthrowing the government, I'd be like, good. This is a better solution than basically any other likely outcome for us right now.
Matt saw this guy with his sort of, pacing like a panther in a zoo with that striped, unbuttoned
He actually
shirt.
had coiled potency, a real example of it.
And Matt was like, I see him not as a politician, but as like a Bonapartist officer.
Yeah. Yeah, he could be our Admiral Horthy. He could be our Lee Kuan Yew. That's like a strong man to hold together all our contradictions through the coming economic and geological crises.
So we get to the press scrum, and like nobody is fucking there, so we command his full attention. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, I want to ask him a stupid question about, what aircraft carriers are made out of, because Virgil said the decks of aircraft carriers are concrete. And I wanted to ask him,
How would it all be steel? It would get hot.
He literally told the story about cooking food on the deck of an aircraft carrier.
You can cook food on the sidewalk in Phoenix in the middle of the summer.
Or, I was going to ask him, do you think China has strayed too far from Mao Zedong thought? And he was sitting there talking, and I was just like, you know what? He has too much dignity, and it's stuck in my throat. So I just asked him, could you talk about China? And he was just like, yes, I fucking will. But Virgil, you got a good question in on Chestack.
Oh, yeah. So we was talking about China for a bit, and my question was, you say that, I asked him, is China communist or capitalist? And he says, well, it's communist and capitalist. And I had a follow-up, and I said, okay, well, so how is that dialectic resolved? Through capitalism, communism, something else entirely, or a total negation of both?
Well, he said basically China is a country ruled by a small elite that wield all economic power, and as such is completely different from America.
See, the thing is that, the worrying thing about CSEC is because he has this vision of sort of like a barracks socialism where we're all part of basically military units and we have a harmonious social order that is organized along military hierarchies. And that's kind of scary, obviously. But the scariest part about it is because it's all a military posture pointed towards China for some sort of inevitable conflict that would probably end life on this earth. But I kind of, in my mind, think that if President Xi and Admiral Joe could just sit down over a beer, they could figure it all out.
Beer summit.
I really think if there was a beer summit between Admiral Joe and President Xi, that they could hash the whole thing out. A global order, bipolar world, international institutions that prevent global warming from cooking everyone to death. So yeah, I've got my fingers crossed that he just takes over soon.
All right, I'll keep it moving here. We skipped Gillibrand because, yeah, exactly. We skipped Gillibrand. However, I will note that the New York Times, out of rating all the candidate performances at the Iowa State Fair, gave Gillibrand the #1 fit of the State Fair for a lovely sundress he was wearing. But, fuck that, exactly. We have already established.
That is the fit of summer. That is the fit of the goddamn millennium.
This is Hot Boy Summer. And the other fit of the fair was, of course, Andrew Yang for dressing exactly like Virgil, Texas. All right, next up is the Dark Lord Hickenlooper.
One of the werewalks of Karth. Look at him. He's fresh with blood. Look at him. It's dripping off his lips.
When I swear to God, if you watch the last debate and you saw Hickenlooper, he is gaunt, appears to be 80 years old, deathly pale. And then we saw him. He is at least 30 years younger and flush and human again. How is that possible without dark magic?
He visited Lucy Westerna. Anyone? No? You don't get that one? Dracula. Read it, you fucking illiterates.
Basically, Hickenlooper looked like a vampire who had just fed.
Yes.
Again, I can't say too much about what he said. I took this photo of him and sent it to Felix, and Felix replied, "Roll for sanity."
He talked a lot about Colorado shit. How he was mayor of Denver and he got all the other mayors together to hang out with him and be his friend. And then he became governor, and he was the first mayor of Denver to become governor of Colorado in 100 years. And it's like, who gives a shit? What the fuck are you talking about? But I did get to ask him a question in the press scrum where all the other questions are, if you're like this guy, if you're like a fucking no-name 0.1% guy, all the questions are, hey, why is your campaign fucking failing? Why are you a fucking loser, you dumb bitch? Fuck off. And I did get to ask him a question. I said, because he is not the only Colorado guy in the race. There's also Senator Michael Bennet, also from fucking Colorado. So I said, you and Michael Bennet are both running in the guy from Colorado lane. Why should Colorado-minded voters pick you over Michael Bennet? And he got pissed off at the question. But he answered it. And he said, essentially, if you want to.
Yeah, Hickenlooper's answer to the question, like, why you over Michael Bennet, is he said, Michael Bennett's a great guy. He's one of the smartest guys of the race. He used to be my chief of staff. He used to work for me. So essentially, that bitch cashed checks and I wrote them. So, moving on. Next up, two of the big boys, Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker. All right, Elizabeth Warren, again, don't remember most of her speech. She had a good crowd. We'll get into who had the bigger crowd in a second. But, don't be fooled, though. Warren got a lot of pop. She definitely got good response from her crowd. There was a lot of people there to see her.
She had a huge crowd. She got applause for the plan stuff, saying I've got a plan for XYZ. Yeah.
Matt, how would you describe her speech, though?
I feel bad saying it, but I couldn't stop thinking it, is that her whole appeal basically boils down to, I was told by AppleCare that the capitalism would work. It's like a consumer-based anger. Not as an exploited worker we're being fucked. Like, I'm not getting the choices that I should in the marketplace. Who do I talk to about this?
So I did ask Elizabeth Warren a question at the press scrum about Medicare for All, and she kind of owned me, which she fulfilled the dream of every donut psycho on Twitter. Which is I asked her, do you regard Medicare for All as a goal to be achieved through a series of intervening policies and steps, or something to be gone all in on day one? And she was like, shut the fuck up, idiot. She was basically what the fuck kind of stupid question is that?
I wanted to ask her a question. I didn't have a chance to because she left after 2 questions and took a hidden exit from the press scrum zone.
She threw a smoke
She found
bomb.
the secret level.
She threw a smoke bomb on the ground and then disappeared.
Well, joke's going to be on her when we release the video, and it's her going, I flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane. Wow, what a scoop.
All right, we got to keep it moving quickly here. Next up, fellow human Cory Booker was very
human energy from this photo, as you can see.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So Booker told a totally I swear to God, he started off with a completely rambling story about how he had to say goodbye to a loved one just that morning, and I was like, what, Jeffrey Epstein? He literally started on the day Jeffrey Epstein died with an anecdote about how I had to say goodbye to a really dear friend and relative. Turned out it was not Jeffrey Epstein. It was just his like great aunt or something that went into a long story about how he's from Iowa, blah, blah, blah.
It's so easy to space out listening to Cory Booker because every one of his speeches is like blah, blah, blah. And that's what it's all about, community. And you understand that in Iowa and family.
You could write...
Life is precious.
You could write a Cory
Bible.
Booker speech. You could write a Cory Booker speech right now. But here is the funniest part, is that as he was leaving the press area, someone shouted a question at him. Cory, because he's a vegan and people are trying to catch him out on that. And they go, Cory, what did you eat at the fair? And he just goes, food.
Whatever I had today, you can rest assured it is consumable by human beings.
So he was the last candidate of the day on Saturday, and it was sort of a kismet because Cory Booker's whole thing is telling sort of pointless anecdotes that, like, I don't know, fill you with some swelling sense of the good of your neighbors and fellow man, and sort of across class and racial divisions coming together to solve the problems that America faces.
Not class divisions.
Well, certainly not that.
No, just one class that he represents.
However, as we were leaving the fair, we literally lived a Cory Booker-style campaign anecdote. And I'll tell you what happened. You know how, like, to park, when you go to the fairgrounds, it's like all the people who live around there basically turn their backyards into parking lots. So we got there late, so it was like, it was fucking, really, really full. So we had to drive around for a little bit until we found a guy who was, like, shirtless and just waved us into a backyard. And we were like, okay, so, like, we pull into this backyard, get out, and we're like, okay, do you want the keys? Because it was like, fucking, there's like Tetris in there. And he was like, no, you take them with him. And I was like, okay, there's a 50-50 chance we're going to get this car back when we come back at the end of the day. And lo and behold, we get back, and what had happened was some wildcatter with an Infiniti, class conflict, had parked his car sort of diagonally across the driveway leading into the backyard where all the cars were, so that essentially everyone back there was completely blocked in.